See, I did it. I knew I was going to do it, Corey. I knew as soon as we got on the air, I was going to fuck it up. But hi, welcome to the 3-on-1 podcast. I'm Matt Ryan, joined as always by the lovely and talented Corrins Hammond. Corey, I think the people can hear you this week.
I have it off of mute, so as long as there's no other snafu, I mean, hey, let's just start off the podcast a similar way as we saw one of the races go. And I don't mean the playoff race. I mean the most important race of Sunday afternoon and evening. Uh, you know, I think the theme of it though is it's a good lesson for everybody in the A7FL, especially after some of the really, at this point, some of the better teams in our league are now unfortunately at home if they wanted to have their season continued. Sometimes you fall down, but just like KC Cox did twice, you get back up and finish running. It's the only thing you can do after you fall. So that being said, I think it's a really interesting week. Matt, with the bye week basically, and happy Father's Day in advance to all of our fathers across the league. Whether you're a player and you're bringing your kid to practice to kind of teach them what it's like to actually work hard for something that you care about. Whether it's the guys that are stepping up for kids that some would wrongfully say aren't even theirs. Anyone that's can identify or has or knows a dad, happy Father's Day. But that being said, and out of the way, and when Rob comes on, we'll wish him a happy Father's Day as well. I got to talk about that Father's Day because I got 9,000 kids, right, Matt. But
All
with this
27 of
kind
them are.
being
You're going to be treated like a king on Sunday, Corey. That's what's going
and
to happen. You're going to be treated like
well,
the king you are. You're a king of men, and I appreciate you
well,
as your friend. And happy early Father's Day to you.
well, I appreciate that, but you don't, as a non-father, you assume that's what it would be. But all my fathers out there know exactly what it is, and it's gifts from your kids and wife with your likely your own money of stuff that you just hope is as the least expensive as possible. And one of my favorite things to say about Father's Day is that free gift that your kids make you is the best possible gift because it costs you $0. And um, you know, not to make light of the situation, but the point of the Father's Day thing is that what's nice about it is this week I think we get a little bit more time to kind of be retrospective about what happened over the weekend, whether it was the serious play on the field, whether it was some of the comical moments that everybody wants to talk about and is focusing on, or if it's kind of the situations in which now that teams are out and done, we can kind of talk about what their season meant and how we look at their season, looking back on it now that it's complete. And then next week we could talk about the preview of the great matchups that we're headed into. But Matt, I don't know where you want to start, but I think the place that we have to start, other than our quick stumble and fall and the reporting on it, is the BIC-U game, which, as promised, as always, was an instant classic that will not be forgotten, likely for years and years in this league, but especially with the recency bias. I mean, find me a better football game, a more compelling football game, a more compelling form of entertainment, especially in spring football. Matt, I think we should start with BIC-U, and what is this? What, like 38 now? That the classic games, and again, Sunday did not disappoint at all.
It did not. On a day of historic blowouts in the A7FL, we had two close games coming literally down to the wire, and shout out to the Sin City Chaos. I think one of the Olentangy Volcanoes is streaming our show, our broadcast, on his Facebook page right now, which is just an odd thing. Don't
Yeah,
bootleg our
my
show.
guy,
It's
my
free.
guy, uh, my guy. They call him Vanilla Nick. I changed his name a couple of times, and one of the jokes was Milk. He gets in a lot of copyright trouble situations. So he also has a YouTube channel that's called A7FL Ohio, which I think that name's technically copyrighted as well. So shout outs to him and his efforts and is taking under advisement the Corey Hammond motto that he'll try. But other things, as in doing the right thing, maybe he tries. But shout outs to J Dub, doing his best efforts there. But that being said, again, more importantly with BIC, Matt, we talked about that matchup. We had representatives from both teams on last week, and I think it really goes back to a conversation that we had with a recently retired legend in our league, Big Mo Ramadan. And when we were talking about his career and some of his seasons, one of the things that got brought up and was a topic of conversation that we focused on was that when you win the championship, especially in the A7FL, but this goes for every single competitive league, when you win that championship, that year coming back, that second year, that third year sometimes for teams that have gone back to back, it's tough to deal with all of the circumstances that surround that championship reign year, that back year. And when we looked at the BIC roster and the construction of it, the youth of it, I think all three of us, including Big Rob, who I'm sure will have a lot to say when he comes on, all thought that this was going to be another year in which BIC was the team to beat and likely favorites. And I think nothing changed based on the performance that we saw. It just goes to show you how, especially in the most competitive division in the Northeast, and we'll see what the Vegas division has for us, next weekend, which should be a great matchup. But especially in the Northeast, the margin of error and the distance in victory is that close. We talk about the recent matchups with these teams. Regular season this year, BIC the U, comes down to one of the final plays. The championship, that 2-point conversion was a yard away. And you could even look at this game, both sides of the ball, when BIC scored their touchdown, their 2-point attempt, Sterry Codrington, one of the most electrifying quarterbacks and playmakers in our league, decided to take off and go for that 2 points from the 10. And it was a great play by Craig Pitts from the U defense that stopped him at the 1, which if you look back at it, that 2 points could have been the difference in the game. And then when we go obviously to the 4th down, that's huge. But I was talking to Ken Stansberry today, and that I think the turning point for that game, maybe the most important play in that final drive for the U, was that 4th and 11 where they seemed like they couldn't do what needed to be done in that series of plays. And when Carlos Crosland came in, all the pressure was on my guy. So, Kenny had some different things to say about it. But shout-outs to Pablo for converting that 4th. And I think
we got Carlos I ate an entire frog there. But we've got Carlos Crosland joining us there in the chat. We've got a bunch of people here with us. And if you want to have your voice heard, you can see the number at the bottom of the screen, 516-387-A7FL. That's 516-387-A7FL. I'm Matt Ryan. Corey Hammond's the other handsome voice and face you've been seeing. When we talk about that BIC-U game, we have to talk about the rivalry's evolution. Because the BIC do have the advantage. The U have the advantage over the BIC. And for the last 5-6 years up until 2021, the BIC were an inconsistent team. We saw what happened in 2016. We've seen many times what Kenny Stansberry and Carl Meisner were trying to do, but 2021 and 2022 were revelatory seasons. And we talk about that slide, that taken aback. Injuries. We saw Ashante Worthy injured at the end of that game, gave it his all. I know Carlos Crosland in the chat saying that he's been, the U won because they were better. And in some ways they were. In some ways they were more focused. They were more determined. The veteran presence in the running game. They had the game plan to defeat the BIC. But the game in no way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, in reference to Carlos Crosland, who we're obviously talking about making that great play on 4th down, what he's saying, and it's really, really insightful analysis there as he's saying, and I quote, "We won because we was better, period." And that's nice to say, but when you win a game 27-26 and you win the game as the clock is ticking down, and we have to spend 25 minutes to decide the actual outcome of that final play, yeah, you guys were better that day. But it would be remiss for our more, let's say, nuanced take to just be out here saying, "Oh yeah, the U was way better," because that's just not what happened. Now, what we did see, and what I think was the biggest reason for the U's success, not only in the first game, but in this playoff game, was when they showed up with the blockers that they had and committed to a game that shortened the game at times, right, Matt? And also set the tone in what type of and what style of game this was going to be, which set up for some great play action plays, which led to touchdowns. The trench game at times seemed like it was being dominated by the U on both sides. And we could talk about a lot of things that went into that game, and one of those things that always gets brought up in any situation, and rightfully so, is who showed up or who didn't show up. But we're not going to really go into the specifics of that because this is a semifinal Northeastern bracket playoff game. If you have not all of your guys there, that's really not an excuse that I'm going to really look forward as an acceptable one. But when you looked at the basic output of both of those offensive lines and both of those defensive lines, I would say unequivocally, most of the time it was the U that won the offensive line battle against BIC's defensive line, which A.O. Burton said was going to get fixed, and it was at times, but it wasn't as consistent as we were promised. And also, when BIC had the ball, Derek Codrington was facing a lot of pressure, whether it was by design because they only went with the two-man line and the four wide receivers, or even when they went to the three-man line with Courage there at the tight end position. My thing, Matt, is that what we saw is the top level of A7FL competition. And what I want to put into context for everybody watching, especially if you're not from the Northeast, is that if you think that these two teams aren't at that top level, or you think that they didn't look at that top level, you're likely mistaken, because I don't think that there's a team in our league that could have looked that much better than either of those teams did at times, because what we saw was the heavyweight fight and knockout blow after knockout blow after knockout blow, and then both teams took it and then answered. Speaking of took it, there was a honey badger situation that I think we're going to just mention, gloss over, and then continue. But Matt, I have a question for you as we kind of head into the subsequent rounds, and I think when Rob comes back on here, I think it might even be, let's save a little bit of the new BIC conversation for bringing him in, because he's going to say that I'm saying the real thing nicely with all these extra words, and he's just going to tell somebody that they suck, right? But when we talk about close games, I think the one game that was really close, Matt, that we didn't expect was that Chaos game against the Heist and our guys. So from what we saw, because I think we were going back and forth from watching a total dominant performance from the Tampa Bay Nightcrawlers to a close game that we didn't expect, what would be your take if you were A, the rest of the league watching the Chaos, or B, the Chaos themselves facing that tough game? How do you look at that result and that way that game broke out, and what do you think it means when we're geared up and getting ready in a couple of weeks here? I think it's 3 weeks for the Final Four in Ohio, in Columbus.
My first comment would be, what did you learn from this? Because the coaches, Brent and Skylar, are two great dudes to talk football with. You and I have both talked with them ad nauseum throughout this season. They think Rob doesn't like them, or Ohio. I don't think that's entirely true, but I'm not going to say anything until Rob gets here about that. But I would say they shot themselves some bail. 6 players were out. 6 main players for their offense were out. They say it's a rivalry game. Rivalry games are close, which is fair and understandable. We saw that with the BIC and the U. But when you've only gone to the fourth quarter in less than 20% of your season, maybe a third of your season, saw you go to the fourth quarter, not just finish a game, go to the fourth quarter. It is hard when you see the final score 18-12 in overtime off a pick 6 to think that those games in big moments, because you say it's a rivalry game, every game at this point is a rivalry game. Every single time you step on the field, it is live or die. It is win or go home. And I want to know your thoughts. 516-387-A7FL if you're listening and watching live, obviously. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can call, too, because it's a voicemail line. People have called this shit at 4 o'clock in the morning, so who the hell knows? But 516-387-A7FL. The question is going to be, for Ohio, what have we learned? And what are we going to do to stop whatever's coming out of the West? Because the sick-with-it fricasseed the LA Aces. The Insomniacs were playing Uno on the fucking sideline. They took that game as seriously as they needed to. So when you juxtapose that to a Chaos team that is running into struggles at this point and playing some of their hardest football, not some of their best football, some of their hardest football, and you're home, it's a neutral site game in the same way that the Final Four of the NCAA is a neutral site game, but we saw the Bucks and the Rams win the big one in their hometowns. When you have that coming, when you have the opportunity to step up and fight, everyone needs to be there. Everything needs to be right. And you need to play your best football. So that's what they got to do in 2 weeks, but how are they going to get there? And I'm seeing in the chat, KC Cox, we learned that at Ohio is not coming out west to go to Bullhead City. We learned a lot of things on Sunday, my guy. We learned a lot of things. 516-387-A7FL is the number to dial. But going back to that BIC-U game, the energy of that game is going to sustain me for like a month. I slept like a rock because of all the adrenaline. And you and Rob felt that. We felt physically exhausted just calling that game. Now that the U have the Father's Day weekend off to prepare, we also have to talk about the Watchmen and the Animals. They had a game of the year themselves. It came down to like a 1.5 possession game, basically. And Quattro Huffin did Quattro Huffin things, and there he is. It's the man, the myth, the legend. He's Big Roberto. Hi, Rob. Hi, buddy. He's joining in just a second. He's got to get his things up. He's got to get his stuff.
So for the Watchmen, 2 things kind of stood out for me, and I think it's that we expected that game to be a little bit more lopsided. I think the respect that we have, and whether we show it or not, or talk about it enough, or watch this, or cannot watch at all, or cannot watch if we wanted to, hashtags, all of that stuff. I thought, and my take would have been that I thought that, no disrespect to the Animals, that the Watchmen, based on their roster constitution and how great of a roster they just basically just put on paper as well as put on the field, that they were probably a good 2-3 scores when it came down to the end of the game than the Animals. But what I think showed in that game is that, the Watchmen pretty much played in control, even though it was really close. And I think we have to shout out to Amari Thomas, number 3, their running back, who is one of those running backs that kind of flies under the radar because of all of the big plays that we see from guys like Tony Toe Tap, from even Chris Matthews, the Super Saiyan, from their quarterbacks, OG Buck and John Gauze. Sometimes what's missed is those, steady 4 to 7 yard runs that Amari Thomas can get and their offensive line can convert. They set up all the big plays, the play actions to Beefy, the up top plays to the receivers. So I just want to shout out to Amari Thomas for not only a really solid season, but kind of, putting that stamp on, because he's always been one of these guys that we see and we're like, oh, look at that run. But more of the Baltimore guys that are around him get the touchdowns or the big plays, so they get more of the attention. But what I will say is that my take from that game is that the Animals team that they constructed, and we'll talk about, the Animals in memoriam at some point, but the Animals team that they constructed was...
And it's Antoine Matthews, not Chris Matthews. I was gonna say it before, but I was gonna go into a bit.
Chris Matthews, you should have gone into a bit, because that's a different pop culture reference, and I'm just being an idiot. But shout-outs to my Baltimore guys for dealing with me, and other commentators that you can barely understand on their broadcast, but not RTU. He's my guy. My wife just left. For me, the Animals season, even though it ends where it did, the way that they fought in Baltimore, with everything stacked against them, that was a trip that both the BIC and the U were really not fond of hypothetically taking if it came down to it. For them to only lose by 8 to a team that may be the favorite now, may not be, but may be the favorite now to win it all, you got to shout outs to the Santistabans, the Quattro Huffin himself, but also that young cast of guys that grew up in front of our eyes. And I don't know what the future holds specifically for the Animals, but I will say that based on the result and based on how hard they fought, even in a loss, I will give them the credit that they had a pretty great season, if you ask me. Well, they lost to the 3 teams that we thought they were going to lose to. We thought that they would lose to BIC. They lost to BIC. We thought they lost to the U. They lost to the U. And honestly, based on those results, I thought that the Watchmen score, what was it, 27-19? That's a pretty representative showing against a team that the margin of victory that the Watchmen had over a team that just beat the defending champs. You got to respect everything that the Animals did all season, including the struggles, which probably helped build their character just as much as all the easy wins that they got as well.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Oh, boy.
You said
No.
Happy Early Father's Day, and what was the rest? No, it's bad.
That's so bad.
My God, bro.
Matt, they can't hear you, they say.
Oh yeah, because I muted to cough, and then all that shit happened.
All right, so
I'm hiring a producer at some point.
Can you hear me?
Not well.
Am I still robotic?
Still a robot. You got to restart your modem, buddy. We keep doing these live shows because we're like, we want to talk about this stuff now and we want to engage with the audience, but it's just, I'm gonna die from it. When we look ahead to...
Well, let's look at one of the comments. The best dad ever. Did Corey watch the game or he just looked at the score? Well, I did watch as much of the game as was possible. And like many of the hashtags that I've been trying to spread all weekend, And I don't know why, if I'm giving the Watchmen credit and I'm just saying that I expected them to score more against the Animals, so that means that the Animals did a good thing in losing to them, that they, as the best dad ever, and happy Father's Day if you are, why don't you understand that that's love for Baltimore? And if you wanted the game to be visible, get us better film. As we really shouldn't be talking as we're bringing this podcast to you the way that we are. Your check is still terrible.
We're a podcast run out of a basement apartment, so we're not a football game. And even then, we get stuff out of a basement pretty fine.
Yeah.
Beyond that point.
But the point is that if we wanted to watch this, we did want to watch this. That was one of the things we wanted to watch. Hashtag couldn't watch it if we wanted to. But I did see some of the film. And like I said, if you missed before, I was giving Amari Thomas, number 3, the Baltimore Watchmen running back, his flowers, because I don't think we talk about him ever, even though he's one of the driving factors of the way that offense is run, especially when they go play action up top, because he's the one that kind of sets the table with that offensive line. But, hey, when Corey Hammond talks, you just have to assume that it's Baltimore slander, even when I'm being positive. So I got you, my guy. No problems there. And Sky the Witness, book our podcast studio for quality production. Hey, we might have to get you on top of somebody. And shout-outs to Mike Sims, Yurt, and Snowflake. And Rob is still trying to get it together. Rob got to chill with the free Wi-Fi. Well, he's still paying for it.
Now you're just low in the mix.
No, it's not. It's not better. You on that Lil Wayne purple drank. That's what you want.
All right, cool. Can you hear me now?
It's better. It's gonna get better.
How about now?
How about
now? Corey, hold on. You talk a lot. Hold on, Corey. That's how I was here. Can you hear me now? Better. Are we better?
Somewhat better. We're just gonna call you Auto-Tune Bobby for this episode of the show.
Cool.
What's your purple drank take on BIC?
I don't know what that means, Corey. Ask me a normal question, please.
I'm saying that you sound like you've been drinking purple drank. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, what's the normal question, Corey?
What's your take on the U and BIC game? Because we talked about it and we missed you.
Okay. After the footage that we just started playing, but that's not my problem. That's the ref, the call the ref made, and it is what it is. BIC guys who won that initial BIC championship, it's cool. Things happen, man. You know what I'm saying? The refs are not going to always get it right. I see happen to be on the wrong side of that, but congratulations to the U. And I'm happy to see them advance. Autobot voice changer is crazy.
Yo, we did a Bachata Sangria Bob episode in which you promised us it was 14, and the fish story has made it now 18 sangrias. You've never sound drunker in your life on this podcast, my friend, and I think it's good for the show.
But, said, it's not Rob,
what do you
it's
think,
AI.
Yeah, and shout-outs to Chat VBot, VIP, or whatever, Chat GPT or whatever Rob is bringing to us. But what was your take on the trench warfare in that game, BIC to U? Do you think that was the main difference, or was there something else that you thought was what led to the final outcome?
It was the main difference. It's the reason why that 4th and 11 conversion from Carlos Crosby's for real might as well just play into it. Carlos Crosland is really what did it. And I'm guessing the push from whoever gave him that's what it was. If it wasn't for that, the game would have been. But they didn't stop and only what they had to do to score. So, again, congrats.
Yeah. Somebody said to put on your Bumblebee mask. You sound like Bumblebee from Transformers. Someone said to join from your phone. And then Scott
Yeah,
McCorkle,
just call in from your phone. You've got it on your phone. Just call in the audio.
Scott McCorkle is really hung up on this situation, and like I tried to say on the broadcast, and also I tried to educate in a couple of the little Facebook groups. Some of our fans at home aren't privy to those conversations, but just search what honey badgers do to larger prey to get them down. And Scott, what we saw was a honey badger doing what is in his nature. And I think we're going to move on from that video because the types of videos that a lot of people want to focus on from this weekend have nothing to do with football, whether it's something that happened towards the end of the Sickwood Aces game, or what happened right in front of our faces and we had to talk about during the BIC-U game on a 3-on-1. But as we talk about the games kind of more on this coast, that does bring us to the other coast, in which in the semifinals for their playoffs, we saw in the Insomniacs and OTT basically recreate the 1992 Olympics, in which the Dream Team was taking photos with every team that they beat by 80. That was fun. And then we saw Sickwood against the Aces team, which I think, the Aces came in. I think that we respect what they were able to do with the situations that they were facing. But they're just not on the same level as a team like Sickwood. So that went the way that did. And then there was also the fun that happened afterwards. But what is your guys' take on the semifinal games for the Vegas division being as lopsided as they were? Does that maybe invite some of those guys on those top teams to maybe make a man move, one would say, maybe a huff move, one would say, and is for the betterment of the division guys on the Insomniacs and Sickwood? If you're a third string guy that gets in when the team is up by 70 and you're basically bragging about how great your roster is that you're hiding behind as they put up all the points, maybe join one of those lesser teams that needs help and see what you can do on your own, because what I need from the Vegas division as a whole is next spring, and you got plenty of time, figure out how to get at least 4 competitive teams, because what we saw from the Northeast is even teams like the Renegades at times could give the top teams a little bit of a scare, at least in the first or second quarter maybe. What we saw from the Kryptonite, from the OTT, from the Aces, and from the Vibe is not what would be representative of A7FL playoff football yet.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
You're much better, Rob, and I think you should start talking because everybody wants to hear your actual voice.
Yeah, Corey, please be fair. Please be fair. Don't tell those guys to do that. You got to understand, New Jersey's been at it for years. We've been at it for season after season after season after season. Those guys don't care what's going on locally. They don't. They do not care. And the Insomniacs were built to beat a team like BIC. The Insomniacs were built to beat a team like the Watchmen. The Insomniacs were built to beat a team like the U. Nobody cares about Snow Tribe. No offense. Shouts out for the swag, too. No one cares about Snow Tribe and the bottom
tier. Nobody gives a shit about you. Shout out for the swag.
No, but nobody cares. Nobody's making their teams to compete with the bottom tier of Jersey. They're making their teams. You want to show the Snow Tribe that? Shout out to the
Snow Tribe.
They're not making their teams to compete with the bottom tier of Jersey. So whatever they have to do to maintain the competitiveness that they have, you know what I'm saying, that they have over there in Vegas, keep doing what y'all doing. 4 teams, cool. We didn't know Sickwood was coming. Who knows? There's a whole nother team that might be coming, and make that 4th team. But don't be mean. The 4s are good. Don't be mean. They have 4 good teams. Don't do that.
You know what I want to do?
The fourth team would either be the Aces or the Kryptonite, and both of those teams got boat raced embarrassingly. So what I'm saying is those guys that are riding the bench for the Insomniacs and Sickwood, not the starters.
No. Guess what? But then you destroy their depth. That's what you're missing. Guess what? BIC will not say it. They will not say it. BIC had no depth playing against the U. How did that turn out?
They
How
lost
did
by
that
1
happen?
point.
It doesn't matter. They still lost. It doesn't matter. What did that man
What
say?
would we
that
say if
fall-
they won? What would we say if they won?
That
Oh,
means
they didn't
they're
have
that
depth and
good.
they won. Yes,
But
and
guess
they
what?
were that good. And if they only lost by 1, they're still that good.
Listen, it sounds
Listen.
good. Say if they won, they didn't win though. They didn't. And the game was close.
Did you guys beat the U in 2016?
Who's you guys?
BIC.
Oh, did BIC beat the U in 2016? They beat the U in 2016. We won a chip.
I know. Now, if that play that is not a catch is a catch, whatever, if that goes a different way, is the BIC roster any worse or better? No.
The problem is I don't want to talk about ifs. I want to talk about facts. And the fact
If you
is,
just talk about what the result is, you don't put into context what actually happened. What actually happened is that BIC, without the depth, still had the top-level talent to
you're not
compete.
putting it in
And what I'm
context.
saying is
No, you're not doing that. You're saying, okay, they lost by 1. This, if that, I'm telling you, BIC didn't have depth. They didn't have depth. If they had depth, then Kason Campbell wouldn't have been playing defense, offense, and special teams. That's depth. So you're asking the Insomniacs to get rid of guys who are third stringers who can come in and relieve a Scott, can come in and relieve a Trey Robinson, come in and relieve the guys that are
I agree with you to a point, Rob. I agree with you to a point. But it comes down to the fact that when you look at the rosters for these teams, the Insomniacs can go out and recruit still. The Force can go out and recruit still. Sickwit, they can still recruit. But what I would want to do is blow the motherfucker up. Because here's why. We need to establish a middle class across the league. There should not be a team that makes the playoffs getting washed 84-6. No matter how you slice it. No matter how you slice it. Savion Cunningham Savion Cunningham's one of the best returners we've ever seen in this league. And the Insomniacs have game sharks, game genies in the modern iteration of the league. You can't. He scored on 50% of his fucking returns.
That's the point, Rob, is because the difference in level of talent in the teams is specifically because the guys that are...
You're telling the teams to do something different.
I'm telling the guys that are riding the bench to a championship.
I want the league to make the change. I want them to blow it up. I want to see a common draft.
No, it ain't a blow up. If the league wants to grow and do the things that they need to do, then Vegas guys shouldn't be seeing Northeast guys at the end of the year. It's as simple as that. If you're asking people to blow up their whole team to make it competitive across the board.
You're taking it the wrong way, Rob. You're thinking that I'm talking to the teams that they should cut guys. That's stupid. What I'm talking to is the guy that thinks that he's really good at football and talks shit like he's really good at football and then stands behind other men putting the points on the board, on the field, while he stands there and waits till it's a blowout, and then he gets on the field to talk shit. Well, if you want to talk shit and you want to be a player in this league that gets any attention, do it for one of the other teams. A guy in Quattro Huff, he went to the Animals. They never won a game. All of a sudden, they're the 4th best team in the toughest division in the entire league. That's saying something. That's an actual accomplishment. What is not an accomplishment is when you're up here with the rings on, showing me that you won a championship because you rode Scooter and Munch's coattails.
Ole Bell just went to BIC and lost. Ole Bell is arguably one of the best this has ever seen, right? Just lost. He lost. Hold on. 4th, 11 version. They rooted him for defense. We gotta stop. We have to stop. Not as easy as a few stringers go to a different team.
What I'm saying, though,
super who can be a team around the team with them. Seeing what he. I'm saying, in order for everything to be even as you want it to be, I don't think it's that player that you're talking about. Nobody wants him on their team anyway, and you don't want him on your team. So don't ask him to go join someone else's team. You don't want him on your team. And It's the league that has to do something different. It's not. Why are we sending bums getting blown out 84 to? Come on now. If Vegas has that many teams, shorten the amount of teams that make it to the playoff. Maybe it's just the top 4.
I think that there's gonna be a day where there are 2 teams at maximum representing each division, and then there's gonna be these developmental divisions for the guys getting on, guys recovering from injury, giving them that opportunity, and then having the opportunity to do travel. We're dealing with the fact that this league is growing and scaling, and some divisions are speed running it, some divisions are growing slowly, and some divisions are just institutions. DMV, New Jersey, they're institutions. Florida has found themselves in a weird situation. Vegas speed ran everything. LA is getting back on its feet. We're looking at the same disparities that have went across college football since the NIL. Like, that to me is an equitable comp. The reason why I would want to see it get blown up is to force less teams in some of these divisions, and it's each division's prerogative to how many teams they put on the field. But there's a difference between saying we have all these teams and we have the best teams. The New Jersey division learned that the hard way.
Well, and what Rob was talking about when he was talking about Ole Bell and guys joining the BIC or joining the U in the Northeast division, there's at least representative teams that are underneath the top. We have 4 teams that looked in, and when we talk about the Animals representation against the Baltimore Watchmen, the Animals then was the 4th team in New Jersey that seemed like they can at least compete at times. They weren't getting blown out 84-6 because nobody even looked comparable. What I'm saying, and as my guys from the Insomniacs in the chat are asking me to name guys, first of all, the fact that I don't know the guys' names is the point that I'm talking about. If you're on the Insomniacs and we haven't talked about you all season, it's likely because you're not necessarily the most impactful player for them. And I'm not going to call out any names. I'm going to call out names that it isn't, right? Nightmare X, you're a starter. You're obviously one of the best guys. You don't need to go and search and find. But your offensive line isn't as deep as your other positions, and I think when you look at some of the other positions on the Insomniacs on Sick With It, you know, maybe if those guys went to the Kryptonite with the Darnell Richardson or whatever it was, then we would have a more representative talent level disparity.
And then they would get smoked by 100 by the Northeast, bro. You got to be real with what you're saying. Lower what they got going on, spread it out in Vegas, make it competitive in Vegas.
So,
then they come out here to the Northeast and get the boost.
Nobody try hard to be a guy on your own. Let it be a collective, so nobody gets the blame when it goes wrong. And you know, join the super team to try to beat the Northeast and see how that goes.
Listen, if you want to blow up the league. If you want to blow it up,
that was Matt.
No, listen, hold on, listen. If that's because what you're saying and what Matt is saying are 2 different things. If Matt, I'll address Matt first. If you want to blow up the league, there has to be incentives for these guys to be on the teams that they're on with the players that they're on, because a lot of guys came in this playing with their friends. It's very tough to tell somebody, hey, come play for my team for nothing. Now, if the incentives are there, I'm all for blowing up the league. Make sure your first pick feels like a first pick. Make sure your last pick feels like a last pick, I guess. Just make sure who you pick feels like they're going to earn their way. Now, Corey, what you're saying, once again, because the way you're saying it is because you have this, it's more anecdotal for you because that's what you would do. You're not sitting behind anybody. You'd rather go lose 7 games than sit behind somebody and win 8. I'm gonna be honest, and that's your stance on it. I'm not telling you what's wrong.
Guess what? I'll eat that the team that I was with and in my efforts on a field that I was 0-7. I would rather that than walk around and said that I'm 8-0 when I had nothing to do with the game. And all of the players that fall under that category know exactly who I'm talking to. And if you don't have the balls to take on the responsibility of being good or not, then ride the bench. That's fine.
Corey, you're talking about bums that no one wants. I know the guys that you're talking about. I know those players. I called them out when they were on my I called them out when they were on my teams. I said, yo, you know you riding coattails, right? You know you suck. I'm not one of the ones that hide it. I'm like, bro, you suck. You're only here because I'm good and my teammates are good. I'm not. Listen, you can ask my teammates. I'm one of those guys. I'm calling them out. But guess what?
Those are the guys that I'm calling out because they can't make a difference. I'm talking about the guys that should be top players in this league.
It's not going to work. Those bums are not going to make a difference. They're just not. The difference you think they're going to make, they're not going to make that difference. They're just not.
I want somebody to
try. No one's going to try.
If you're scared to try,
and I want to give context to the blowing it up thing. Rob, in that scenario that you posited, like everybody's getting paid, everybody's financially compensated, that's what I want to get to. And it's not just because of Vegas, because I'm seeing that in the chat. I've been talking about this, and Rob and Corey can attest to it, since 2021, 22. Like, I've been pushing for getting us to that point because I love this game. I love my job. I love being able to talk shit with my friends on this podcast and talk with everybody watching and listening. Without y'all, we're nothing. And that's the base of it. I want to see what happens when we even the playing field, when there's parity. Because it's not fun watching teams get blown out. It's not fun calling those games. We make it fun, but we have to look at the next 5 games are our most competitive of the year. And that's pretty fucking cool.
And we have a lot of insomniacs in the chat, and what they're saying, I understand that everybody gets a role and that they're sharing and there's no egos, and that's great. I have no issue with that. And as an organization, the Insomniacs did a great job putting on a better product than everybody else. What I'm saying to you guys, though, and specifically Scooter, because I respect all of the guys that are in the chat that do make a huge impact for the Insomniacs when it's their turn. But Scooter and I, and I'm just shouting out Scooter because he's in the chat, we had a conversation, and I said it on air, and it's true. The Insomniacs most of this season would have had better comp scrimmaging themselves on the games of the week and playing teams like the Gold, the Hunters, OTT, and even the Kryptonite, and the Aces.
Okay.
So if they can scrimmage themselves and it be competitive, then there's got to be some room.
Wait for it. Matt said something very important. He said Las Vegas speed ran. They skipped steps, bro. They got there quick. They skipped a lot of steps. You cannot compare an institution like the Northeast to what Vegas is doing. Vegas is doing something special. Vegas is getting it quick and learning it as they go. I still don't think they're a shoo-in to win the chip, but I guarantee you the Insomniacs are gonna be there. They're gonna be there, and then they're gonna see what it feels like, because they will not know what it feels like to play a Northeast team or the Nightcrawlers until the chip. That does suck, but there's nothing they can get blamed for. They have the most teams in the league. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff right. They are. So
it's the model for what the rest of the league should be doing, to be completely honest. And I'm seeing some of the comments in the chat. Baltimore proved their value the minute the Watchmen came together, because that is a fun team to watch.
That's what A7 always supposed to be about. A7, everyone remembers, Town Beef was supposed to be BICs and the U's, and A7 was supposed to be all-star teams, state to state, doing that. That's what A7 was supposed to be. So the Watchmen are exactly who they're supposed to be. The U are exactly who they're supposed to be. BIC is exactly who they're supposed to be. The rest of the teams are getting there, but we can't forget that took work. The Animals didn't get there. Well, shit, they got there overnight. But the Animals, they were always a tough, chippy team. I remember being in games with the Animals, blocking my ass off and saying, yo, why are they going so hard? Like, bro, y'all the Animals. Like, then I remember, bro, they're the Animals. If I don't play my best game right now, they're gonna kick my ass. Because I would go there relaxed. Huh?
Well, and then you turned up. You turned it up.
I turned up and kicked my ass. But I would
there was
always have to remind myself to turn up, because they'll try to kill me if I don't.
But there was a fight. It was a
always.
fight. Even if it's
Always.
50 to, even at the end of the day it was 50-12, there was a point in the game that it was a fight, right?
Always. Against the animals, always.
Where's the fight from any opponent that has played the Insomniacs? Go.
Once again, you're comparing an institution to a speed run division.
But even to give
all I'm
Corey
saying
some
is that
credibility on that point, the ability, like, if you were playing a team that wanted to take photos with you in the second quarter of a game, snapping pics for the fucking gram while you're getting cooked in a playoff game. Your opposition is playing Uno on the other side of the field. And there are guys
that I saw wrapped around an Insomniac by an OTT is when they were hugging like this when we had that break in the game. There was a more competitive game of rock, paper, scissors between Nightmare X and one of the guys from OTT, which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Nightmare X, yeah, Kenny Mac. You dominated those those Rochambeau tournaments as well. So I think we could put a cap on this because I think we're getting a little misunderstood here. I'm not telling the Insomniacs or Sick With It that they did anything wrong and by building the best rosters they could. What I'm saying is that it's incumbent on the talent in Vegas that if you really think that you're him, and this isn't a shot to Himothy because he is him. If you really think that you're him, then don't back him up. Go be him somewhere else.
Yeah,
what do you guys
ask
think
KU know how that's going. Nah, I'll shut that. Ask KU know how that shit is going. Ask KU know, because KU know thinks he's him. Ask him how that's going, because that's exactly what he did. How's that going for him? Pretty good, right? No.
If you
Shit's
ask
terrible.
me, if you ask me, and he was able to, keep his nose to the grindstone and keep grinding, that's the way that you take on the top. Is
You're
you struggle,
combining
you learn,
type
and
of
you get
players.
better.
You're combining two different kind of players. The guy that doesn't want to sit behind nobody is not going to keep his nose down either, Corey.
So you would prefer our league have a guy like K Uno be a guy that comes in like CP3 did for BIC on 2-point conversions as a gimmick, and to potentially find more players to put around him and maybe have another competitive team with a guy that we've seen win at times in the fall?
Where's K Uno now?
I mean, in the same spot that I am. Oh, for
Probably. But the thing is, the difference, a guy like CP3, who's coachable, who'll listen, who then becomes the leader that you want him to be, sitting behind a bunch of vets. CP3 got trained by vets and became a threat in this league. He won a chip his second year.
Yeah, but he earned his stripes in this league with what team and when we were impressed with his rookie year.
But he sat behind a vet his sophomore year. He sat behind a vet.
Year.
Mm-hmm. He did what? And that's what I'm saying, Corey. I'm
with
giving
a
you the
shit
formula.
team, he put his name
I'm
on the
giving
map.
a formula for the championship. You're giving me a formula to play A7. What do we want to do here?
I'm giving Vegas a formula to maybe give us a game that any viewer at home would actually want to watch for more than just the race afterwards.
And
what do you guys think about the Florida game? Because it's the same exact thing, and I think we.
It's the same exact problem.
But based on what we saw from the Nightcrawlers, because I don't even want to talk about the matchup. It was obnoxious that Devon Gray was so convinced that he was going to win. But how big of a threat is what we saw from Florida based on the exact same conversation that we're having?
Huge. If I'm warning teams because I already said the Northeast has the hardest road to the chip. Okay, BIC is out. Let's talk about who's in. The U, the Watchmen face each other. Those two teams are going to beat each other up. They're going to beat each other up. Then have to travel to Ohio to face a Nightcrawlers team that if the Watchmen make it out, I think all those Nightcrawlers are going to be licking their chops to get to them. If the U make it out, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. Either game is a good game. What I'm saying is the team that's coming out the Northeast is going to be a little sore, a little banged up because they had a tougher road to get there. That's what I'm saying. So that to me alone makes the Nightcrawlers a huge threat.
I'll ask you this, Rob. In a very similar situation in this weekend's best game, obviously, the U had that tough road, that grinding road. They had to play week in, week out, play. Says BIC had all that rest and all that relaxation to get healthy. Do you think it's a different situation with the Nightcrawlers and the Northeast champ, or do you think that the testing of the mettle of both of these teams so far better prepares the Northeast champ when they play a team in the Nightcrawlers, which obviously has the top talent? They haven't faced the test at all, period. Even worse than what the Insomniacs faced, because at least the Insomniacs faced and will face Siquidit. The Nightcrawlers are right now sitting pretty in the spot in Ohio, ready to face whoever it is. What do you think is the more advantageous route? The easy route, or getting beat up in the hard route, but at least getting tested?
The fact of the matter is, if anyone that goes and plays the Nightcrawlers for some reason thinks that these guys aren't tested, that they didn't learn the lesson, that cruel lesson they learned last year, I feel like you're walking yourself into a trap. Those guys are not going to make the same mistake they made last year, because they lost that game, Corey and Matt, and we've been talking about them ever since. And I'm gonna mind my tongue, because I've already been wrong. BIC lost. I had BIC winning the entire thing. BIC lost. I'm out of it. I'm out. My bracket's done. I'm done up. My parlay is screwed. All right? I'm finished. So all I'm saying is they can't go in there thinking, oh, these guys aren't battle tested. We've been here before. Bro, they're going to get shook up. They have to play an honest game. Play it between the lines. Henderson's not playing with nobody, bro. You've seen it.
And here's the thing. I saw in the chat the coach of the Insomniac saying the Nightcrawlers had the exact same problem. They did, and
it was worse then. It was worse.
Yeah, it was worse.
You guys
The
had a
issue,
tougher schedule.
the reason why we have such respect for the Nightcrawlers is because we saw them play one of the two teams left from the Northeast with most of the same roster from the year before, if not a better. They have a better roster now than they did a year ago. The rare breed now the Watchmen. They played a Northeast team to the last 2 minutes and lost off a Baltimore special. It is hard to denote how grueling that is. And I think that the respect that we have for the Nightcrawlers and the addition of DRC obviously helps, despite how many times he was targeted in that game, as opposed to Deontay Henderson just lighting people up on the sideline and just players playing nothing but trick plays. For all of that, we have a lot of respect for the Nightcrawlers, and the Insomniacs and the Siquid, it's going to be the best West game we've seen all season, and it might be better than any of the other conference championship games. But Rob and Corey,
I'd honestly like to know from the representatives of the Insomniacs, whether they play or coach, what more can we do? We're criticizing the rest of your schedule and saying that guys on your bench better step up and try to make the league better. That's not a shot at you guys. That's just how good you are. And did we or did we not rank you guys number one all season? So come on,
yeah, they were at the top of our fucking top 10. That means nothing, but automatically meant something because we said it.
Nightcrawlers were 7, and I think that my opinion on what I asked Rob is that if you ask me, I think what better prepares a team is a situation like when you put the Chaos. I think it's better for the Chaos that they got a wake-up call in their championship than if they just blew the Heist out and now they think that they can coast and actually compete with the Insomniacs. They better look in the mirror and say, we're not close to that level, and work hard getting prepared for the team, whoever it is out west. Because if you look at what the Nightcrawlers have been doing, it's awesome. But I will say this. the reason that they lost the game last year wasn't because they weren't better than most of the game against the Rare Breed. It's because I don't know if they knew how to handle the tight game the right way. Now, I think they knew better. I just think they didn't want to. And I think they did learn their lesson. And I think the worst thing that can happen for anybody rooting for the Northeast to win a championship this year is if the Watchmen are the team that play the Nightcrawlers, because then they're going to have tons of extra motivation, even more so than just winning and being the dominant team. They might sleep on the U, be like, the third team over there, they don't even have a quarterback, or whatever garbage you say about the U.
Better not. The Nightcrawlers sleep on the U, the Nightcrawlers are going to get the doors blown off them if they sleep on the U. I promise you that. I promise you that. Don't sleep. If you can't sleep on any of these teams, that's insane.
I'll ask you this.
None of the teams left in this playoff bracket should be taken lightly. From here on forward, every single team left has a shot. The defending champion got.
I got you, Skyler. No, go ahead.
The defending champion got eliminated in the fucking divisional round against the team they played in the last two chips. We're walking into a situation where we might have two expansion teams technically playing for the championship. We have two expansion teams playing for the Western Conference Championship. Potentially, if the Sick win, if the Insomniacs win, they're technically an expansion team because they didn't win until this year. The crux of it for me is everyone's got a shot now because the defending champion got. Outside of that, it's matchups and tendencies.
Well, how about this? As we sit right this second, who do you guys think now? The defending champ is out. We can really have this conversation legitimately because it's not just fall back on who knows how to do it. They did it last year and they have the better roster. Who's the favorite now that BIC is out? Because this is the most wide open an A7FL final, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 has ever been? Ever. By far, the top 6 teams that we have now, and no disrespect to the Chaos, prove us wrong, but I don't think the Chaos are on the same level as the Nightcrawlers, Sick-Witted, Insomniacs, Watchmen, and you. I don't think that they are yet.
Yes.
Who's the favorite? Who's the favorite now that BIC is out? Because that question is probably just as tough as any other question we might ask.
I mean, we logical about it. I mean, right now, you just the head off the monster. I would be a little nervous still with the right now. They had it took to be BIC, but we always say stops make matters. The Watchmen did beat the U regular season. I mean, you know what, Corey? I'm gonna say it. You're right. I don't know who the hell's the favorite right now.
It's hard because if you look at the teams that we could make an argument for, I think you could make an easy argument for the Insomniacs, easy argument for the Nightcrawlers, easy argument for the Watchmen. I think you can make those arguments and be legitimate with those arguments. I think that if you don't try to make an argument for what we've seen from the offensive line, which, correct me if I'm wrong, in my opinion is the most important unit set in this league, period. That's why I think the Insomniacs are one of the better, if not the best team left in this playoffs.
Because of that offensive line, yeah.
But when you look at the U's offensive line, tell me a defensive line that isn't going to have Sean Johnson pull from that fullback position where he was playing and just annihilate that speed rusher if they decide to go speed rush. And if you play the way that BIC was forced to play against that lineup, a run-heavy defense where you have to overcommit to the run. We saw it against BIC. It's going to happen to other teams if they overcommit to the run against the U. Wide open guys on play action, and whether it is Moon or Carlos Crosland, both of them are capable of hitting those wide open guys, especially if it's Dot Boss. And Kareem Moon even said it on the one touchdown he threw to Pat Coburn. If you don't cover Dot Boss, he's going to score a touchdown one way or another. So I think that when you look at that position group, the offensive lines for all of these teams, you look at what the Watchmen do, and that picture that's been going around Facebook that's almost as bad as the Honey Badger situation.
Oh my God!
He gave that man the Mormon date night. in front of
Bro.
God and everybody.
What
Well,
do
not
the
everybody.
Marines call it?
he-
What's it
that-
called? Like
that
socking
guy-
or something? What's that weird thing? Docking?
I don't-
No,
that guy's-
no, we're not going down that road.
We shouldn't. Fundamentalist road is a scary one. But sorry, I broke Matt. If you look at that offensive line and not just the viral meme stuff, but you look at what the Watchmen have in the offensive line, you look at what the Insomniacs have in the offensive line, and you look at what you bring to the offensive line. They have Dot Boston at tight end, and it's 3 legit D1 level linemen blocking the shit out of even BIC's defensive line, where we were like, damn, look at that seal. And running backs with years of experience in this league being dominant. Willie May,
Right.
Snag Sosa, Hard Body, Daryl Truck Luck. Did I forget somebody? Yeah, I did. Keep going down the list. There's more. And then you could do a play action with Moon off of that. Or you put in Carlos Carlson, who came in on 4th and 10 and was still able to convert against BIC, the defending champs, in a must-have situation.
I mean, honestly, based off of what we even saying right now, it just really, for the first time ever, and I'm very happy to be the one saying this, it looks like whoever has the better offensive line, this is so cool, whoever has the better offensive line in these playoffs is probably who's going to win the chip. And it doesn't really give me too much confidence in the Nightcrawlers, who have great skill positions, but they look a little small up front. It gives me confidence in the U, because they're very dominant up front. The Watchmen seem to be the more. Let's just cut to the facts here. The Watchmen, the U are the underdogs against the Watchmen. Or can we agree?
Absolutely.
Well, the Watchmen beat him in the regular season. I kind of
what does the
consider the
Watchmen
BIC a bit of an underdog heading into the U because of the Miller brothers. But the way that John Gauze and the Watchmen played against the U when they faced off a week after the BIC lost to the U makes it way too close. After seeing the U do what they did to the BIC in the first half of that game, it's a matter of, can the Miller brothers play enough on that offensive line? Can the stamina and the drive of that offensive line sustain for how long the U are on the field? Because they were eating time on the clock. They were using every single A7 rule that is unique to our league to their advantage. They cut the field down. They kept cutting the field down until they were throwing it up to Coburn. Until they were able to set up Pat Coburn, they were eating up the field. They were throwing hard body. They were throwing Daryl Luck. They were throwing in snags. They were cutting the field down, but they were doing it slow and methodically. Not the U offense we saw a year ago. And that was the thing that was keeping the BIC off on their back foot the entire time. They couldn't get through the line.
But if you
And
look
that's
at
what's
roster
going to make the
construction,
matchup between the Watchmen versus the U so dangerous, because the Watchmen's defensive line is not a joke, bro. Like,
their
they're
rush
actually-
defense is by far best situational rush defense left in the playoffs. And that's what I was going to say, Rob, and I'll let you finish. Because if you look at all of the rest of the roster constructions around the league that are left, there are those bigger defensive linemen that play on the inside. And like, for instance, specifically for the Insomniacs, they got that Oos McQuaig. He's kind of a hybrid defensive end that's big enough that reminds me of almost like a Beefy or a Nick Mays for the Watchmen. But none of those defenses are constructed to be a run defense down in and down out. And for the BIC to beat the Watchmen in the regular season, it almost makes sense now looking back to it, because the Watchmen aren't built necessarily to be as athletic on the defensive line as Sterry Codrington was. So that was an issue for them that entire game. And even though the game was a lot closer than the final score appeared, they lost that game, and that's probably one of the reasons. But when that matchup isn't against BIC and it's against the U that wants to run the ball into the teeth of a defense that features Beefy, Freight Train, Wolverine, etc., etc., etc.
Butler, that's his name? Josh?
DK Butcher. Yeah, DK Butcher. But that defense is set up specifically to be the U kryptonite, the counter to what the U do. So that's going to be a great match.
Oh, it's going to be, it's another chess match. Like, I was kind of upset that we were talking about all these bum teams and how they're getting blown out, when all we have to really look forward to, as Matt said, are all these phenomenal games left. Like, who do the Insomniacs play?
The Insomniacs play Sick With It, and that game I'm looking genuinely forward to calling. And next Sunday, just for a programming note, our games will begin at 4 p.m. Eastern and then 7 p.m. Eastern. That's when we will be on the air with the A7FL Division Championships, the Southwest Division and the Northeast Division. We'll finally figure out which one of those teams are going to be making it out. We start the action on A7FL.TV, DAZN, and on 4 o'clock, and then we're on Fox 5.2 calling the action at 7 p.m. for the Insomniac and the Sick With It. Corey, you got something?
That, like, Final Four, even though it's not the technical Final Four, and shout-outs to the Nightcrawlers and Chaos who took care of business, and they're comfortably ready to go to Ohio. But that weekend of football, those two matchups, the BIC-U, not only to the rivalry and all the extra stuff that goes into it, that game on its own, great. I think at least one, if not both of those games are going to live up to it. But I will say this. Sick With It has gotten their flowers from me and has gotten a decent amount of praise either from their own roster, you know, when they're like smacking each other on the back because of how much they love to talk about players of the weeks and such, or from the rest of the Vegas division that when they play them, you know, for instance, like against OTT, allows 92 points. But one big thing, and I hope he comes back in time, is Lavish T might be out for sick. Now, he's not necessarily their number one receiver or number one target or whatever, but he's one of those electrifying playmakers, especially in the 3-on-1 and what he brings there. If they don't have him, that is a bigger loss than I think even just the stats say, because even when they put him at running back, which I think was at times during the middle or end of the season when they were going a little bit more away from the full spread, you have to honor those plays when he's the action guy because of how explosive he is. If he's not there, that's going to put a lot more emphasis on Darren Palmer, DP, who's been playing that tight end position really great. He's a natural wide receiver, but he goes in, he does his job when he has to block, and then he slips out, has the mismatch, which is why you put a guy like that at tight end, like BIC does with Courage. And he's one of those better, if not the best playmaker on their team. But then you look at a guy like Betts. I mean, Sick With It has the guys that they could make a dent in Insomniacs. But from what I've seen, I don't think that Sick With It has enough to overcome Insomniacs unless the Insomniacs get in a situation where, it's kumbaya when you guys are winning 71-0, and you got what's his name, Q, the backup quarterback, coming in and basically, you know, calling ridiculous plays that don't even matter, untouched into the end zone, handing the ball off to linemen, and those guys are still untouched. You know, the only arm that went around a offensive player from the Insomniacs, and I'm just going to repeat it again, IOTT, was when they took that picture. So, for me, the only team that could beat the Insomniacs out the West Coast, and this might be my hot take, as much as I respect Sick With It and Mark Gray and all that they've done, Jeremy Geary, we talked about it, a great quarterback in this league that he reminds me of. The wide receivers, the defensive line, they have a championship-level team. I think they're going to lose maybe by 2 scores to the Insomniacs next weekend. That's how good the Insomniacs are.
The Insomniacs are all the players we looked at last season and said in the fall and said
that's New Jersey ready.
Yeah, we want them on our team. RTC is a revelation at running back, and we saw him run 4 times in the last 2 games we saw him. One of them was going 95 yards. And to me, the fact that just the fact that they have a guy who can do that, and then they have Trey Robinson playing at every possible position. They have Scooter. They have Kenny Mack threw a fucking touchdown. Like, let's not, or it was an extra point, whatever it is. He threw a scoring play.
right.
I think it's undersold that Trey Robinson is really, even though he's not at the helm at quarterback, I truly think the Insomniacs are a threat at the max level that they can be a threat at because of Trey Robinson. Trey Robinson knows our game. He's been here. He is maybe, if not arguably, the best player in Vegas, and he's from the Northeast. So
But
Trey
the thing that
Robinson is giving,
You know what's crazy about Trey Robinson, though?
Wait, hold on.
Reputation.
Trey Robinson is giving them fits. If he's giving them fits, he's the only one that can prepare his team for better competition. Trey Robinson knows. He's been humble. He's been smart about what he's been saying, but he's been able to talk as well because he's been here. Everybody else is kind of just guessing. The Force know, but they're out. They're gone. We don't have to talk about them. But Trey Robinson knows what it takes to win in the Northeast. I think him just being there is enough to help them give the Insomniacs a puncher's chance at winning that championship. Puncher's chance.
Listen, I wouldn't be upset with either of you if you said right now, when we were saying it, that the Insomniacs are the favorite, even though we never believed it until, we saw BIC go down. Maybe. Now, I'm not going to go there, but what's crazy about Trey Robinson, as great as he is, and as great as his reputation is, as great as Eric Shufford is, as great as his reputation is, when you talk to the Insomniacs, including those two guys, they might rank other guys on their team ahead of them. And I got somebody in the chat saying that Q is not a backup. We run a 2QB system, Corey. We know how much you love that, and you know that I do. And I really appreciate that you listen to the show and you know and you get me. But I will ask you this, guys. What is the definition of a backup?
Person who plays less than 49, less than 50%.
Can we respect the fact that A7 is a different type of sport where maybe that term backup doesn't apply here?
No.
Maybe it doesn't apply.
If Insomniacs are down by Sickwit in 3 points with 1 minute and 15 seconds left, it's going to be Q that goes out at quarterback because it's his turn?
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Did we not just see a man get his cold ass off the bench and convert a 4th and 11? Be quiet, Corey. This is a different league. You know what I'm talking about. This shit's different.
Brian,
it is more like basketball in hockey.
Are the Insomniacs going to do it?
I'm just saying we're playing a different sport where it's almost offensive to call someone a backup. If I don't start, I don't even think starters necessarily matter the same way in A7 that they do in other sports. I'm just being honest. When I went to the U, if I didn't start a game, I didn't take it like, oh, I got benched. No, I'm coming into relief. All right, yeah, I'm probably gonna get a series, 2 series, 3 series. They might keep me in the whole rest of the game. Doesn't matter. Whatever the current, whatever is required at the time, being able to make those on-field adjustments is what works. If that's just what works, I don't know. There wasn't no 4th and 18. Was it 4th and 18? He converted 4th and 18. Oh, he said 4th and 18. That's great. Nah, 4th and 18 is crazy.
4th and 18, I think, was the throw that he made to Moon that just slipped out of Moon's hands, maybe. That might have been 3rd and 18, but Carlos Carlson, when he was called upon, which is unfair to do, he made the plays. But I'll say this.
He's a football player.
There's a lot of teams that have quarterbacks that are more than just the one quarterback. But what I've seen is that teams that have an obvious number one that's better, for instance, the Animals. How many reps during a meaningful game was Kenneth Stewart, who showed when he got a start and when he had his chances could do the job? How many times are you taking a guy like Huff out to put in Kenneth Stewart? Because if you're telling me you're taking out Scott Hamilton to put in my guy Q, who I don't disrespect, I think that's a mistake. Go ahead, Rob.
All the one quarterback system teams are in Cancun right now. They're on vacation. This
So
one
it was a
quarterback
mistake.
thing holds
It was a
no weight.
mistake for BIC to not have a second quarterback.
Bro, what I'm stating to you is a fact. I'm not saying if, ands, or buts. All the one quarterback system teams are at home in Cancun. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, I'll ask the Insomniats and Siquidit. Are you guys gonna just play fair and let your two quarterback system rotate out in a game that's really close and really tight? Or is it going to be similar to what Siquidit had to do against the Force, in which they brought in their backup quarterback, who everybody respects out there? He had a little bit of pressure in his face and he threw an interception. And then they went right back to JG, who was their starter, and then that's who got them the win. How did the two-quarterback system work for the Force when it was fourth down and they put in an inexperienced D. Fox, who was the high-ceiling quarterback and not the knowledgeable low-basement quarterback, and he calls a quick screen on 4th and long, and he can't even get it completed, and they lose the game when they had the ball with a chance to tie it.
The Force's starting quarterback sucks.
Well,
I'm
their
sorry.
backup quarterback wasn't better.
You literally forced me to say this shit every time you bring them up. Briscoe's trash, bro. I'm sorry. He's not it. You're not winning.
Would
Listen,
you rather on 4th down have Briscoe throwing the ball on a play that was called right, or Fox panicking and looking like shit and losing the game for his team? That's what I would
Fox
ask.
Inexperience. If Fox had more experience, I promise you, it's not going down like that. But then again, every other team you've mentioned that they lost to, Fox is 100% better than Rock. But Fox is inexperienced. You are
always grilling me on results, Rob. What's the result of D. Fox in the game for the Force?
Sick-witted won. Sick-witted won.
Yeah, D. Fox is that quarterback. Yeah, and when D. Fox, the better quarterback, was in, he turned the ball over for his team when they had a chance to come back against a team that won.
Right, and the Animals who have Huff, who's the greatest quarterback we ever seen, are at home in Cancun. Do you see how it's easy to just pick a team and just go for it? I'm just saying.
You're the one who said that D. Fox is the right answer, but we're not going to talk about his results.
D. Fox is better than Rock. Rock is coach. It should be in a coaching system with D. Fox. D. Fox needs those games in order to make it. Sterry was not Sterry his first year. He did amazing, but he still wasn't who he was this season, his first year. They still need to go through the motions. This is D. Fox's first year. You're comparing a first-year guy to these dudes. It's not even fair.
What I'm saying is not that's my take. What I'm saying is that your two quarterback system, you putting the guys in as rotation, at certain points in the game, you have to look at your roster and say, who's the guy who's going to win the game for me? And if you thought it was D. Fox, maybe it was, and maybe I was wrong. No?
No, and Corey,
we'll see how these two quarterback systems work as we go forward. When the chips are down, if they keep switching back and forth.
What's going on between me and you right now? Shannon left.
We're having fun.
No, Shannon left. We gotta bring this. We gotta make this work, Corey. Shannon left. Skip. You can't leave me, Corey. You can't leave.
Rob,
wait, who the fuck am I then?
I talk shit to you when it's just text. We get mad at each other over text, and we're not ever mad, by the way.
You have to keep the leash on us, man. You have to moderate this. You can't let me.
I've done a terrible job with that today because I walked into this podcast pissed off, and I wanted to, not just life, bro. I walked in, I'm just like, my hip hurts, my knee hurts from going out there on the field balling, chasing down our fucking scoreboard guy.
Wait. Did we talk about the falls already, or?
I think what I want to do right now is I want to thank everybody for joining us. We're not going off the air yet. We're going to do a couple of things. We got some voicemails. I want to play the voicemails. And what I want to do is 516-387-A7FL is the number. 516-387-A7FL is the number. Taking a look here at the voicemails. Let's get this first one here. It's from a 908 area code. So they're saying the 4 best teams from the East Coast would beat the 4 best teams from the West Coast, no cap. What do you think, Corey?
I actually didn't hear any of that.
Yeah, me neither. That's why I texted.
Ah, fuck me. Okay.
So here's the thing. A, when you're a 908 area code, obviously there's a little bit of bias. B, we saw the level of competition in the top level teams, the championship level teams, just this past weekend in all 4 of the top teams in the Northeast. Let's not include the top 4 of the Vegas teams, because no disrespect to the Kryptonite, based on what happened from the fall to the regular season and all the players that they lost, it just wasn't a comparable top level roster. My opinion is that on any given Sunday, those top 2 teams from Vegas compete and maybe could, on a neutral site field, beat some of the teams in the Northeast, if not all. That Force team, though, is one of those ones that I look at, and I don't think that the Force match up decently with any other team maybe than the Animals. But we just talked about it. When it comes down to it in the decision-making at the end of the game to win the game, especially on offense, when you put those teams side by side, I just have to say that I trust the Animals and what they have over what the Vegas Force have, and that's no disrespect to the Vegas Force. But when you talk about Sick With It and the Insomniacs, I think it would be hard to say, you know, the hot take, the fun thing to say that some of the guys in our league say is, oh, they trash, we beat their ass. All right, fine, that's fun to say, but if it really happened in real time, I don't think any of these teams that we're talking about that are left, except for you, Chaos, no disrespect, but except for you, Chaos, I don't think that any of the 5 teams that we're talking about that have a chance at this championship right now are walking onto a field, and every single time that they play on a neutral site, you know, in 1,000 reps, it's a dog walk every single time. Momentum's crazy, and one of these teams might get blown out, but it's not because that they don't have the top level talent or the top level scheme or the top level experience. Just that sometimes things escalate in a game. That momentum and that rush and that landslide, that sometimes can build into a blowout. Ask the Animals what happened in regular season against BIC in the U. But if you're telling me that when Sick With It goes up against BIC, that's not at least going to be a representative game for 4 quarters, I don't think that you're looking at the tape the right way, because BIC likely does win that game, if I'm being honest. But a lot of us thought that BIC was going to beat the U in the matchup that we just saw this weekend. And football's football. You got to prove it every Sunday.
And to answer a question in our live chat, yes, there is a Madden Tournament Championship weekend, and we will be with you on Championship Week. Well, I can't say that, but their championship weekend tickets are on sale now. A7FL.com/championship. That's A7FL.com/championship. Use the code A7FL early to get 20% off your tickets. There will be a Madden tournament, an esports tournament. I think there's going to be a Blitz and an NFL Street tournament too. So you can head on over there now. A7FL.com/championship. That's out in Bullhead, starting July 21st through the 23rd. And we're here on the show. And let's talk about something that was instigated on this podcast a week ago by the man in the top left. A race between myself and the play-by-play announcer for the Las Vegas division, KC Cox. Now, I am not an athlete. I am entertaining, I am angelic in the face, and I'm very, very good at what I do when I don't have to plug all the things in. I can plug some of the things in, but not all of the things in. It seems that during the broadcast on Sunday, KC got into his bag a bit and thought that not only would I taking my lighthearted jabs trying to keep everything about football, about me not making it to 40 and me being a bit wider, he kind of didn't take that for play, took that for real. And to everybody watching this show, please remember, this is a show. We are characters on this show. So when we say things, we're eliciting a reaction A lot of it's our real opinions just amplified because this is a show. And we're characters. I'm sorry to break kayfabe for everybody, but we actually do like each other. And Rob may hide the camera to hide from that fact, but we actually get along with one another, and we're friends.
And he's not ChatGPT.
Yes. He's showing that the locks are real. Don't worry, there's no lace in his front. But speaking of people that were alleged to have lace fronts, KC Cox decided to, at the behest of Scott McCorkle, we're all just showing that it's our real hair here. It's pure Irish, German, Polish, and depression. He ran a 40-yard dash, and I'll rephrase.
27.
He attempted to run a 40-yard dash twice. Keyword there is twice. Now, whether or not...
Attempted. Oh, no, he said it. Actually, I said it.
We were supposed to, by tomorrow, Wednesday, for those who are not watching or listening to this live, put together a list of demands for a competition on championship weekend that would either comprise just the play-by-play announcers or the entire announce staff. I am right now offering KC Cox the opportunity to shoot himself some bail. Because this is all for fun. This is all for football. But don't do it, son. Don't do it. 'Cause we're having fun. This is a podcast. But like my man Corey Handsome, I prove it on the field. And like my man Corey Hammond, I try. And if I do try, the same way I do in the booth every Sunday, sitting next to the two best color analysts in football, I believe that wholeheartedly. If I try, if I put forth the effort, if I go out running every day, if I continue to do drills, if I continue to shed some of the pumpkin body and get back to when I was doing CrossFit 3 times a week, eating paleo back in my 20s when I still had hope, this will not end well for you. You DNF'd twice off the couch, my guy. You memed yourself. Don't do it. Because whether it's a race, whether it's a commentary contest, or whether it's a civics lesson, to quote the great Omar Little, you come at the king, you best not miss. To quote the great Richard Fleer, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Boy, Chicky, you're still in kindergarten. I can teach courses on this. Learn the levels. Ascend the levels. And then we can compete. That's all I got to say on it.
I have a different take. And Matt
Of course
might
you
get mad at me. No. But what I would be interested to see or hear, because for as, enter adjective here as that performance Sunday night was from KC Cox. And shout out to Will Franklin, by the way, who obviously is the fastest member of the 4. And Scott McCorkle, a.k.a. Bjorn Skarsgård, or we'll call him, Bjornson. What will we call Bjorn's kid? Because if he's Bjorn Skarsgård, then his kid would be like Leif Bjornsson, right?
Corey, get back on track, Corey. Come back to us.
Scott McCorkle's kid was faster than all those guys as well, and I think he's like 7. KC did actually step up to the plate and run the 40, so we do have to give him the little bit of credit that we have there.
Oh, yeah, no, he ran it.
My question would be to the rest of his guys, are they willing to get their guy KC's back even after the showing? Because, Matt, we talked about it Sunday. We were out there trying to get you prepared for this because we're taking this seriously as you can, with a bet on a podcast about two play-by-play announcers running a 40.
Yeah, I'm 5'8" with a bad left knee, and I eat a lot of sandwiches. I ain't an athlete. I ain't whooping anybody else's ass in a race. I ain't doing that. I know that.
But I know and am very, very close to a certain tattoo artist. And if you are willing to get your guys back with the bet on the line of a tattoo, speaking of, my wife's actually working on the art of Matt Run, by the way. Stay tuned. There is an awesome promotional situation for our league. Now, I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be Chris Vera, who, he's always Vegas versus everybody. I don't know if it's going to be Bjorn. I don't know if it's going to be A-Dub. Maybe even Derek Duncan. But other side of the ball, that was a great showing. That's not what we said. We didn't want to see evidence of the 4-9 that Casey promised us with all the cap in the world that anyone could ever give. Because, KC, I love you, but you're not getting sub-5, even if you work out until the championship. No.
Well, no.
No. Everybody in our league knows that you can't do that. You did try.
Dude, if I get a 6'5", I'm happy. Because I know my limitations.
KC got
I'm gonna be real. The only reason why I gave a shit about any of this is because KC said he ran a fucking 4.9. I saw KC on the field and I saw those little legs and I knew there was no way on God's green earth did KC ever fucking run a 4.9, maybe 49 seconds, as somebody said in the chat. 4.9 on the feet, fucking impossible. You don't understand how good. Listen, hold on. You don't understand how dedicated how sure of myself I was. I have to remember, she lost today. Felt like I didn't know anything anymore. Knew Kane couldn't run.
This is the biggest disappointment of the show because what he's saying is awesome, and I can't understand any of it.
Why? He shit twice.
He ate shit twice.
To quote somebody in the chat as it was going on, and I think the name on the chat, and correct me if I'm wrong, it says Big Rob. KC's not real. Laughing emoji. So KC, I really support the try, and you did your job. Let's be honest. He did his job. He showed up to something that he wasn't even necessarily responsible for showing up to, but he said, all right, I'll do it for the league. And he did it for the league, and he deserves credit for that, honestly. Who's got his back? Who's willing to put up hair or tattoo? I am. Other side of the ball. You have until tomorrow approximately at this time. Any of you have what it takes to get your guys back. And I'll just let that simmer.
I don't want no tattoo. I don't want no haircuts. I'm just there to watch.
I wouldn't ask any of that for you, Rob. I didn't ask for any of this to happen, but
I did.
I'm a carny, and when I see an opportunity to sell people to watch this nonsense, I'm gonna fucking take it. So
hashtag watch this is for two things. The elite level athleticism race that we're being promised and dancing around for the championship weekend, but also let's not hide it under a rug like the Watchmen tried to do with their own game film. Watch this. They might be the favorites as well. So on this podcast right now, I said that the Insomniacs are the favorites, the Watchmen are the favorites, and the U are the favorites moving forward, because why not flip-flop, slip-slide, TBS, boy. Let's go. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. It's been a great podcast.
Hold on. Hey, cool case way. I just want to be very clear with you on who the fuck I am. I'm a champion in this shit, bro. Most of the guys that are around you and are around the league are trying to achieve what I've already done. I'm going to talk all the shit I want because the teams that are kicking y'all ass, I fucked them up. Just in case you didn't know who I was. But it's cool. I'm not doing shit, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm not doing anything.
And I wouldn't ask that of you, Rob.
I'll run.
You
but
bachata Bob. You're
run.
I'll run,
Listen,
but I'll likely mess up
I'm
my
not
ankle
blocking
again.
Scott. I'm not block. I don't even want to block KC, and I would annihilate KC. I'm not blocking KC. I'm not blocking Scott McCorkle. He looks like he has another gear. He has that young gear in him. I don't got it. I'm tired. I am retired. All right. The heavy emphasis on tired.
Yo, don't
Nah,
get it
y'all got
twisted.
it.
Scott's in the gym trying to get to his max
Yeah,
level.
fuck out of here. I want no. I
he
want
is
nothing to do with Scott
playing
McCorkle.
I want no smoke with Scott McCorkle at
and
all.
I can't
Yeah.
wait until he announces what team he's going to be on. Maybe.
He
maybe
already
something
already
that-
announced what team he's gonna be on. What the hell?
He did. He did.
He's gonna go to the
Nightmare
Insomniacs.
X literally, yeah, he coughed and said, Insomniac.
But that
Viking.
wasn't the actual announcement.
Corey Hammond, stop.
Don't
He's
take
on
it
the
away
damn
from my
All right,
guy.
we're gonna wrap this show up.
Yeah,
We're gonna
you
wrap
just
this
did
show up.
that.
We'll
bad,
get
Scott.
more on this next week.
Uh,
Can I give-
But to just
Scott,
make
Can I
it
give
Scott-
Cool Case Way one thing? Let me give Cool Case Way one thing. Cool Case Way, the only way I participate in anything is if it's a push-up competition, and I'm there for that. And that's it. That's all I'll do. That's it.
Who's up?
fair enough. But to clarify, don't have no Ghost Rider, all off the dome. I'm good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do, and I don't need people writing my reads. I don't need people doing my prep sheets. I don't need people all up in the videos. I don't need people all up in the comments trying to get me to where I gotta go. I got there because I know what I'm doing. I have my spot, and ain't nobody taking it from me unless I go. And if I do go, guess where I'm going? So on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the 3-on-1 podcast. I would like to thank Big Rob Fabian and Corey Hammond as always. To quote
like to
Nazir
thank the
Jones,
chat
hit your
all
body
about.
like ether. We'll see you on the other side. See you next week. As always, like, comment, subscribe, click the links in the thing. Next week, Northeast Championship, Southwest Championship. It's the fucking Watchmen in the U, Insomniacs in the sick with it. We're going to celebrate Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there who are doing their job and raising your goddamn kids. That's what you should be doing. Live up to the standard that you want to set for yourself. And as always, don't be an asshole.